All right, we are going to welcome our next presenter. Representing Team Hya Bioplastics is Dennis Sechimpi, who's working on an undergraduate degree in civil engineering at Makerere University in his native Uganda. Dennis, take it away.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Dennis Sechimpi from Uganda, and I hope everyone is keeping safe. I am part of Hya Bioplastics, a group looking to eliminate single-use oil-derived plastics. Before all this, our lives were different. Before the pandemic and the lockdown started, we lived a different consumer lifestyle. We ate out, had takeaway for our meals, went for parties, served food on disposable plates and different plastic materials. All this would throw away immediately after use and never really cared where it ended up. We in Uganda, most urban centers have centralized markets where most low and middle income people access fast foods in form of takeaways. This can be compared to how most people in the US can access cheap takeaway meals at McDonald's or KFC, but this is not in a roof or a building. The markets appear serving fast food from about 4 p.m. to midnight on a daily, and most of these vendors sell their food in plastic packaging. Next slide. Let me tell you about these plastics we use. They are inexpensive, lightweight, and easy to make, and these properties have made it the most ideal material to be used for packaging globally, even for our vendors in urban markets in Kampala. In 2015 alone, as you can see, the illustration, global plastic production was up to 400 million tons. Next slide. From this slide, we can see that about 86% of the plastic we use is disposed and listed as waste. 14% is recycled, but an alarming 32% leaks into the environment. Oftentimes, this plastic contains toxic chemicals that are detrimental to both the environment and to humans, where they can lead to health complications. Next slide. How do we solve this? As Hya Bioplastics, we decided to use one problem to solve another. Next slide. But before we get there, the picture was taken a few years back on Lake Victoria and shows a ferry surrounded by water hyacinth with no sight of the lake, but only a green cover. Next slide. Water hyacinth is a free-floating plant whose growth is linked to accumulation of nutrients in freshwater sources. These nutrients end up in the water through water runoff from land where fertilizer has been applied and other forms of water pollution. The weed is very fast growing and has been observed to grow up to about a rate of 5 meters per day in heavily polluted waters, which is about 17.5 tons per hectare per day. This has led to increased coverage in different freshwater sources in the world, from the West in America to the East in Australia, with several others affected in Africa as well, as you could see in the map. It has been utilized in limited low-value applications like crafts, animal feed, but generally viewed as a hazard. Next slide. By blocking waterways in Uganda, it has cost fishermen an additional $2,200 in fuel annually and about $83,000 worth of fishing gear destroyed. Losses valued at about $1.8 million were estimated due to inaccessible landing sites. Pests that can spread diseases like malaria grow in the mud formed by this weed, which affects human populations in those areas. The dead shoots of the hyacinth decompose in water and affect its quality, hence leading to an increased requirement of the chemicals for treatment before supply. Next slide. Another interesting fact we found is that in sub-Saharan Africa, more than 50% of the world's cassava is produced, with more than 40 countries growing it, but mainly as a subsistence crop. The crop, however, has been greatly undervalued, with prices as low as $0.04 per kilogram being paid to farmers. Globally, exporting countries like Thailand opted to reduce their production and exports because of this. There have been attempts to increase its value through use as an additive in animal feed, but no significant value has been marked. What then have we decided as Hya Bioplastics? Next slide. Hya Bioplastics has created a bio-based, biodegradable packaging material using water hyacinth feedstock, cassava starch as a binder, and glycerol as plasticizer. The goal is to reduce existing petroleum-derived disposable packaging used by food vendors not only in Kampala and Uganda, but in Africa at large. At the end of its life, it can be transformed into useful products that have less harm to the environment. Next slide. Water hyacinth, our material, consists of an average of about 11.5 crude fiber, and this is the source of the filler material and reinforcement in our biocomposite material. The hyacinth yields a rigid brittle fiber, and therefore to improve its flexibility and reduce brittleness, glycerol plasticizer is added. The product requires improved hydrophobicity to protect it against moisture, so we considered beeswax layer as a protective biodegradable coating. We also included vinegar since it's observed to offer protection against fungus. The mixture will then be heated and compressed in a mold to form our biodegradable packaging. Next slide. Our feedstock is an invasive plant, and that doesn't compete for arable land with food crops, unlike previously used bioplastics feedstock. Producing a bio-based biodegradable bioplastic is a safer option compared to petroleum-derived plastics, whose production has more carbon emissions, making it less environmentally friendly. Next slide. So we looked at the unit price of our product against the price of a common packaging material in our economic analysis used by fast food vendors, who are our target beachhead market. Clearly, ours slightly exceeds the price of what's on the market, but from our projections, economies of scale can help bring down the cost of our packaging to about $0.1, which is comparable to the existing products. Next slide. We further considered a situation if all hyacinth is exhausted due to high harvesting rates, and we idealized a concept of hyacinth farmers in our economic analysis, who grow hyacinth in urban gardens and tower gardens to avoid competition for arable land. On the left, you can see that each farmer spends about $11 for a 9 square meter farm, yielding about 2,000 shoots per fortnight, based on a growth rate we presented earlier, and we pay off about $21 for this, making it profitable for our farm. Most importantly, on the right, we have our production cost breakdown, based on our estimates from the first and second prototyping trials. All this led to a cost of about $0.124 per packaging material. Next slide. A circular economy is based on 3 principles: regenerating natural systems, keeping products and materials in use, designing out waste and pollution. Our circular economic model looks at closing the loop by providing low-cost compost to farmers from our waste packaging material, which will help them to improve yields when used in the soil condition. And in particular, we're looking at the cassava farmers who supply us with the binder that we use. We looked at using our waste packaging material to create briquettes and improve their calorific value by adding material like chicken waste. With about 25.4% of families relying on charcoal, and this is dangerous since it's sourced from trees, we look at our briquettes becoming an alternative fuel source, not only to the fast food vendors, but to other Ugandans who depend on this fuel as a source of energy. Next slide. The impact of adopting our product cuts across environmental, social, and economic boundaries. There's significant reduction in pollution once we use bioplastics. Harvesting of hyacinth has improved benefits for communities that will rely on water bodies for a livelihood. And using cassava as a binder in our product has an impact on cassava farmers who have more market for a formerly undervalued product. Our compost can also be used to help them increase yields when they use it as a soil conditioner. Next slide. Let me draw your attention to the most important part of this. For our prototyping, we have been able to carry out interviews with over 20 vendors in Wege, a market in the neighborhood of Makerere University, which serves students, and carried out a survey to establish what packaging material is used and average number of clients they attend to. From this, we found out that the market serves mostly university students, and about 2,400 of them, and has about 100 fast food vendors. They depend on aluminium foil and polythene bags, and this is detrimental. Next slide. From this, we realized that a centralized community is established right here in Wege, and the data has been able to enable us to build a model that eases collection of our waste in this centralized community through strategically placed customized bins at the halls of residences, where the university community can effectively dispose of the biopackaging material as waste for Hya Bioplastics to access in a composting facility. Countries like Uganda don't really have well-streamlined waste collection facilities, and this is the motivation for us to build our model in a centralized community. Next slide. We were able to develop sheets using our material, using locally available equipment and rudimentary methods, where we did not have an even heating process, hence the dark shade that you see on the sheet that we developed. But since we know that bioplastics are challenged with composting, we use the sheets to test for compostability of our product using different methods: the rectangular windrow, the inverse composting method, and aerated static pile, to assess which method yields the best quality of compost based on the different standards globally. But we also know that the methods we're using are available in the different composting facilities in the country. Next slide. Scaling up our model can be quite challenging and requires a centralized community to easily and safely collect waste to ensure it ends up in the rightful municipal facilities. The limited knowledge on the potential of bioplastics can hinder adoption, yet they are a good substitute to oil-derived plastics. On top of this, there's limited supporting policy to allow speedy adoption of bioplastics in many countries, and Uganda inclusive. Next slide. However, we trust that Uganda's vision for 2040, which calls for a green economy for sustainable development, will give innovations like bioplastics an opportunity to emerge and go into wide-scale application. Next slide. Our team is composed of a multidisciplinary group, and we have focus in different areas which are viable for us to accomplish our target. We also have support and mentors at the university who have specialization in material sciences, and this can help us to achieve our objectives. Thank you very much. Hya Bioplastics.
Music break. Dennis, thank you. Extraordinary idea. Congratulations on a wonderful presentation. We're going to give the judges a minute to talk amongst themselves. I'm curious to ask you a question while we wait here. You yourself and another one of your teammates were actually finalists last year for Wege Prize 2019, where you won third place with an idea that enables households and institutions to optimize water usage through gray water recycling. How has that idea developed? Tell us about it.
Yeah, definitely. Since then, when we won the award, we went on to participate in other innovation programs where we have been supported greatly to push our idea from the prototype that we set up in the university during the internship program, like we said during the final event last year. So we set up that prototype at the university, and to date, it's well functioning and it's being monitored to see whether the water it produces is meeting the standards for reuse. So we're going to do that for the whole of this year to continue monitoring and ensure that it meets the standards. But yeah, we have really had a tremendous success ever since we left this platform last year.
Nice, nice work. Thank you. Thanks for that follow-up. All right, judges, hand it right over to you. Take it away.
Yeah.
Right.
I'll jump in.
All right.
Hi there. Great presentation. It was a little bit difficult to follow some of the screens because, at least on my side, it was fairly pixelated. I have two questions, though. Given that this is, first of all, it's fantastic that you're taking on such a big problem. And I really like the solution that you've come to. I'm wondering how biodegradable the packaging actually is, given that it's so fibrous. And so when this is expanded at scale, is that going to be a challenge for most local composting systems?
Yes, to answer that question, so water hyacinth has been previously used as a fertilizer, and it was being composted directly after being harvested. Now, the fiber in itself, being a natural biodegradable material, does not affect the product that we're developing despite the additives. So to ensure that we have compost that will meet standards, we have ensured that we test 3 different methods, because different methods will help us achieve different composting results. So we want to see from those methods if this fiber that we have obtained from the hyacinth will be able to degrade given the different industrial composting techniques that we're applying.
Great. My other question is, how do people know when they're finished with the packaging? How do they know that it's recyclable, and how do you prevent them from simply putting it in the trash like they're used to?
So maybe we didn't elaborate on this very well, but for our prototyping, we decided to start out with the university community, which is surrounded by that market that we saw in the presentation. So the market supplies students in the university with fast foods, and they package them in different materials. So once they adopt our biopackaging material, the students should access customized bins at the halls of residences that the bins are for our particular product, given the markings and the labels, such that we can efficiently collect our biopackaging from them.
Thank you.
Hi, I'll jump in. I loved your presentation. I think it's a very, very powerful example of the circular economy in motion, especially thinking about how your local circumstance can give rise to innovation. So I applaud you for that. I think I'd like to know a little bit more about how your model of production could take place at what scale. So my curiosity is whether you think the startup costs could be low enough for many producers to start making your bioplastic, and therefore get to horizontal scaling, allowing your solution to pop up and scale in many locations? Or do you see the need to centralize your production and produce a lot of it in one location?
Yeah, the model we built does depend on a centralized system, and we noticed that we shall be able to break even after a much longer period of time of about 3 years, which is not the very best. But this does enable us to achieve the benefits that come from an environmentally positive solution. Now, once we have set up a machine, which any other person that decides to produce our product needs, just a machine, and they can be able to start producing these products very easily. So the biggest cost and the biggest challenge we have is around the machine and the production costs. But once you've been able to overcome that, obtaining the hyacinth is a free product. You just need labor to harvest it, and that ensures that our product can be profitable, not in a very short period of time as any other product would, but after a period of about 3 years that we projected.
And do you think to enable you to scale, like to larger volumes, do you think that do you envision having other machines that in the same location or in other locations to produce the same product?
Oh, yes, yeah, the machine can be in any other location to produce the same product. The centralized system is only to enable us to collect our waste efficiently. That's why we decided to start up in such a place whereby we can easily follow up on how people are disposing our waste, so it's easily collected and utilized in composting. So we do not have any fixed system that stops people from producing this. As long as the machine can be set up somewhere else, it can be produced easily.
Thank you.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I love the idea, and I just can't help but think, and I know this, what you've come up with is great, but are there other possibilities to be done with these plastics, with this process? Like, we've seen other processes where people are creating, silverware or other foodstuffs for compostables, but do you see a greater value beyond just creating packaging that's compostable with the bioplastics that you create?
Yes, maybe if I get your question well, I think this is a very valuable benefit of using this feedstock, the water hyacinth, because we're developing a product that's quite profitable for someone who's producing it. Previously, hyacinth has been used to do fertilizer, to do animal feed, like we said in the presentation, and these have been seen to be less profitable ventures, and they do not motivate people to harvest the hyacinth from the lakes. So I do trust and believe from the estimates and the economic assumptions that we developed that our product can give motivation for hyacinth to be harvested, given the benefits economically.
Great. Thank you.
Dennis, I loved your presentation. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Colin. Go ahead.
Loved your presentation, Dennis. Loved your energy that you had for it. And yeah, echoing what other people have said, you're trying to tackle a big problem. In fact, you're trying to tackle two big problems at once. The issue of plastic and the issue of an invasive species and the systemic issues that come with that. I wondered where your starting point was for this project. Was it coming up with a plastic alternative, or was it dealing with the water hyacinth?
Our starting point definitely was dealing with the water hyacinth. When we started in this journey, we evaluated the different uses water hyacinth had been placed into, like the fertilizer I said, and animal feed. And we did notice that it's not giving people motivation to harvest or to utilize it. So we needed an alternative which is used much more frequently, much more often by everyone actually. Just food packaging is literally used by many people. So this gives a sense of belonging to the hyacinth, that people will have more motivation to obtain it, given that there's a product which is much more profitable to someone who's producing it. So we began from the hyacinth harvesting issue.
Thank you.
Great presentation. I think my question is a couple things. One, who are your competitors today for the water hyacinth?
Yes, so at the moment, we have identified a few organizations that are trying to use the hyacinth like I said, for fertilizer production and animal feed. We've identified a small startup in Kenya. It's harvesting hyacinth on the Kenyan side of Lake Victoria to use it in animal feed. And however, they have noticed some problems with it because for them, they only use the leaves and they throw away the stalks. They have much more waste that they're producing. So this has become even a problem still since people harvest and all they use are the leaves. So they require much more of it, and yet they are giving only value to farmers. While us, we're looking at a situation where we're giving value to just more than farmers, we're giving value to much many other people who are using packaging material. This is a bigger proportion of the population compared to the farmers, despite it being very valuable in animal feed. So that's
Got
our
it.
main.
I don't know what the size of the market is for compostable packaging. So if you could diversify beyond packaging and into other products, what would you target?
Yes, definitely. In the future, I think if we have left the packaging industry, a better alternative would be cutlery that we did try to evaluate earlier. Just that will definitely need a different behavior change from people to adopt this cutlery, which is biodegradable in the fast food industry. Because definitely there are alternatives to this. For example, someone would rather use their reusable fork or reusable spoon, but that did look like a viable option for us to try and venture into once we have left the packaging industry.
Thank you so much.